according to the World Health Organization, dental issues and poor oral health is a worldwide problem. Not here so much in the US because we're not like a third world country or anything, but in these more impoverished and not as wealthy countries, oral health is a really big issue, especially in children. And it's very unfortunate to see. And I was looking at a graph, and in the last 50 years, the United States has actually improved their oral health, but unfortunately, the world is not following suit. So it's still a very big issue worldwide.
I've been working, told them please don't hit my phone. I'm in my zone, bruh, just leave me alone. Was on the road, but I swear I'm coming home. Now the drinks on me, I think we need a toast. See, I did it for me. Now my old friends calling, told them nothing's for free. Told me time is money, dog, swear I paid all my fees. I was starving for this game, now my family can eat.
Hey Matt.
What's up, Pete?
I'll be honest with you. Becoming a nurse was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Not only do I get to work in medicine, but also grow as a human being.
I also remember those nursing school days, feeling the lack of confidence of what I should do next, how to start my career, and that transitionary period requires a good nurse residency program.
Luckily, HCA Healthcare has a nurse residency program. Build your confidence and grow your critical thinking skills with hands-on experience. They also have a great community of supportive nurses that will help you excel. HCA Healthcare has 184 hospitals across 19 states.
Becoming a nurse resident with HCA comes with other great benefits, such as tuition reimbursement, student loan assistance, and they'll provide you with clear pathways to achieve your professional goals.
If I could give any advice to my younger self, it would be to join the HCA Healthcare Nurse Residency Program. They accept applications for nursing students who are preparing to graduate within the next 6 months, or graduate nursing students who have 6 months or less of experience when they apply.
You can learn more today at careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. Again, that's careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. Hey everyone, welcome to another Cup of News episode with your hosts, Peter and Matt here. Thank you everyone for tuning in and taking their time. We appreciate that so much. If you listen to the previous episodes and going to listen to this one and you think you find some value in this episode, it takes us hours sometimes to put into the work to create the show notes, to cultivate this awesome episode. So take 5-10 seconds and go ahead and like the episode on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Smash the 5 stars. We appreciate it. And kudos to you. Some extra brownie points if you leave a comment for us. That's what motivates us. This is what pumps up the algorithm. And this is why we get motivated to keep on producing this high quality content. We're like over 150 episodes in. If you want any things as far as announcements or anything related to Cup of Nurses, check out the cupofnurses.com website, and also we are frontlinewarriors.com for anything related to the conscious movement that we are working on. And there's also blog posts that are being posted on both websites weekly, so tune in for that. There's a lot of value. Also, both of the shops, Cup of Nurses and Frontline Warriors shops, are out. Peter's wearing the Frontline shirt. I'm wearing the Con shirt from like a throwback from 2020, so it's still available there. And if you like to watch our videos instead, we're on YouTube. We do nursing debriefments. We talk about our shifts and what is the day-to-day, the real nursing shifts and what's happening. So we kind of share a lot of great information on there. And then also pronto, we're working on an app that's going to innovate and revolutionize the healthcare industry. It's going to be for all healthcare professionals, and it's coming very, very soon, Q1 of 2022. How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing great. So today, everybody, we're going to put on our dentistry coats, our dentistry costumes, because we're going to talk about dental health. Dental health has a big impact on our overall health. A lot of times looking at your teeth and your oral health, it can actually show you how well you are in our overall health status. Yeah, What's crazy is like, I know in the US, the stats are a little bit different compared to worldwide, but according to the World Health Organization, dental issues and poor oral health is a worldwide problem. Not here so much in the US because we're not like a third world country or anything, but in these more impoverished and not as wealthy countries, oral health is a really big issue, especially in children. And it's very unfortunate to see. And I was looking at a graph, and in the last 50 years, the United States has actually improved their oral health, but unfortunately, the world is not following suit. So it's still a very big issue worldwide. Not so much here in the United States, but it's definitely a worldwide issue. But it's still very important for us to talk about, because poor oral health, poor oral hygiene, and poor teeth, you could say tooth care, leads to a lot of diseases that are preventable.
Yeah. And if you look at chronic diseases, it's not a coincidence. It's not bad genes. Sometimes it's literally chronic inflammation, the silent inflammation that we always been talking about in all these episodes that are leading to so many big things. And inflammation, if you think about it, starts in the mouth. The mouth receives everything from the external environment. If you think about it, it's almost like another organ. It has blood vessels. It actually is alive and functioning. It's getting blood flow into the teeth to do things. It's releasing saliva to start the beginning of digestion. So we could call it an organ. And if you look at inflammation, it's, what's interesting about dentistry is that dentistry and the medical field are two separate spheres. But in a way, like, there should be combining and holistically looking at things and seeing, like, hey, if there's issues with the dental cavities, maybe the doctor should, or the dentist in this case, should tell the doctor something about this and see if there's other links, and maybe check some chronic inflammation markers to see what the linking is. Because, inflammation happens from the tip of the roots, the gingival pockets, around implants, around dead teeth, around cavities, and it's all starting there, which is a hallmark sign that, hey, we are developing inflammation.
Dental health is so important that they have literally their own field for it. But there is a lot of, you could say, disconnect between, especially in a hospital. I think I've only had maybe, I want to say 2 or 3 patients in my whole nursing career where we had somebody come in to do a tooth extraction. There was one guy that had endocarditis that we're going to talk about later, that needed to get a few of his teeth removed. And then I know for before we place an LVAD, we make sure you have good oral health as well. So sometimes we have somebody that comes in, a dentist, to take off those teeth as well before we put them into surgery and put an LVAD in them, because having an artificial device in you increases your risk for infection, for blood clotting. So you want to prime you up to get this surgery. And that's one thing I just reflect on right now, because I completely forgot. We always did oral checks. Not us as nurses, we did like the oral care, but we always had the patient be evaluated by a dentist or or an oral surgeon, or somebody that does oral care and health for a living. So that's how important it is. And unfortunately, it's one of those chronic diseases like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, where it's not just like one day you wake up and you have a meth mouth going on, right? You don't just go to sleep one day and then next morning you have 4 or 5 teeth missing. It's not like that kind of acute thing. It's a chronic thing that happens over time. And, and not incidentally, unfortunately, it is the patient's fault that they don't do this. Not something that, you get a pill for. You get a pill for the pain, but no one's going to come in your home and brush your teeth for you and take care of your diet and cook for you. It's something that you have to take initiative, just like with anything else in life. A lot of these are preventable. It's just how well are you preventing it. And a crazy stat is that more than 1 in 4 of adults in the U.S. alone have untreated tooth decay. That tooth decay is not severe enough for people to notice and to cause pain, but it is occurring there. Like we said in the beginning of the show, poor oral health and all that stuff is more of like a outside of U.S. phenomenon, but this just shows you that we still have some fixing to do. I know greatly that the oral care has definitely improved in the U.S., especially for kids. I remember back in the day, like 2005, 2006, so I want to say, time frame, I always used to see a bunch of commercials on TV about brushing your teeth, about oral health. So I feel like the CDC and the World Health Organization at least did a pretty good job of kind of lowering the effects of poor dental hygiene on kids.
Yeah, and if we look at like the mouth being this organ and it's being part of the digestive system, we can really relate to like the microbiota of the gut, where hey, there's healthy gut bacteria, but once things happen such as inflammation, the good bacteria are opportunistic and could lead to problems in other parts of the body. And same thing here, there's natural healthy bacteria in the mouth that's formulating, but if you're not taking care of your mouth, this bacteria is going to find a home somewhere else, and that could lead to problems. Just like gingivitis, you have, and periodontitis, you have a receding gum. Our teeth have so much vasculature and blood vessels all connected. So if you have receding gums, which are protecting that part of the tooth where all the blood vessels are, now the bacteria could tap into the bloodstream. They're going to go find a home somewhere else, and they're going to cause chronic issues. What if there's a correlation between bacteria constantly being in the bloodstream, entering the mouth? Now you have the immune system constantly trying to clear that up, and that's leading to atherosclerosis and plaque. We unfortunately, are still behind on the human body and its capabilities, and we're still kind of finding stuff out as we're going. But what if that's a connection that we're missing in our society? So yeah, it's crazy to think about.
You never know. And as you all know, that once healthcare healthcare is always going to innovate. So the more we innovate, the more we revolutionize healthcare and treatments and prevention. We slowly start to learn about this and how we're all connected. Another crazy stat that the CDC provided for us is that 46% of adults age 30 and above have gum disease. So if you're brushing your teeth as an adult and you have bleeding gums, you're not supposed to have that. If you brush your teeth and you're spitting out some kind of an amount of blood, that's not healthy. That's showing that you have gum disease or some kind of underlying issue. And a lot of times what you could do is just increase the frequency of your brushing your teeth. Like, let's say you brush your teeth only once a week and it causes bleeding. Well, if you increase that to once a day, maybe even twice a day, it's going to fix itself, because a lot of these issues have to do with an overgrowth of bacteria, not necessarily you brushing your teeth too hard that's causing you to bleed. It's not the reason, because our toothbrushes are made, the bristles, they're made from whatever the rubber or whatever the material that is. It's not gonna cut your gums. It just shows that you have poor dental hygiene, that whatever you brush, it's bleeding and it's coming from your gums, and it's very unfortunate. So if you're bleeding after you brush your teeth, and you may brush teeth like once a week, something that you have to kind of take into consideration and realize that it's still fixable. I could still fix this issue. It's not going to cause me endocarditis in the long run, or whatever other issues poor dental hygiene causes. You can still reverse that, but you got to kind of start now.
Yeah, when I was reading things for this episode, they said that a lot of times we get gum damage from brushing way too hard horizontally. So that's actually kind of like ruining the gum line, and it's kind of causing it to be receding. And that's why it's beneficial to get the electronic toothbrushes and have it brush in circular motion, which prevents that receding of the gum.
Of course, but you gotta brush. Theoretically, like, I brush my teeth pretty hard, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort to just cause your gums to bleed from brushing. And of course your toothbrush gets worn out. So of course, when you get a brand new toothbrush, you might want to take it easy. You maybe don't want to jam it in there as hard as your toothbrush that you've been having for like 6 months. Because if they're fresh bristles, they're a little bit more stiff, and you just gotta be careful for that. But yeah, just be careful.
I used to have electronic toothbrush. I lost it in the RV trip. Actually, I forgot it. And it had like a little sensor. When you're pressing too hard, it would flash red. So it knew the amount of pressure that you should be using to brush your teeth. So now I'm a little bit more cautious. But this electronic toothbrush I have doesn't have that fancy function.
Mine doesn't have that either, but it has a time sensor. So like it goes, and then when it vibrates twice, it means that I've brushed already for a minute. So there's some fancy stuff out there you can get, but all you really need is a regular toothbrush, and you could prevent these dental issues. Common sense, guys. Come on.
So if we look at the main factors that are causing poor oral health, Peter mentioned poor hygiene, so that's toothbrushing, and then there's also diets high in sugar. So sugar actually changes the acidity of your mouth, and the saliva is trying to cultivate a normal pH. We're going to talk about pH a little bit later. But there's two bacteria that are benefiting from having sugar that's literally feeding off the sugar, and that's Streptococcus mutans and Streptococcus sorbinus. And these are the bacteria that are like feeding off the sugar. They're creating like plaque. And plaque is literally like the biofilm of the bacteria. Like biofilm is like a protective thing from bacteria. Somehow it's like coating the teeth constantly. It's almost like atherosclerosis. It keeps like piling up. That's what the biofilm is doing. It's making it like a hard substance to brush off. And that's why you need to go get your 6-month oral care to properly get rid of that plaque around your teeth. And the sugar also attracts bacteria that are eating away this gum. that are causing gingivitis and gum disease. And I actually have like a family history of gum disease. My dad had like periodontitis, so he actually had most of his like teeth removed, and he needed to get like bone restructuring and gum restructuring. So I actually myself have like a little bit of like a receding gum line. But the dentist just like kind of watches, and he kind of tells me like, hey, if it's receding too much, then I have to go see like the oral surgeon to have his evaluation of what he thinks.
Because they can't you can't like add a gum line, right? Like, what would they do for that? I'm curious. Do you know?
They would do reconstructive surgery, to restore the gum line. I don't know what part of the what part of the mouth they take and all that's a little bit too advanced, but yeah.
Maybe they just like pull it down or something. Maybe because maybe they have like maybe you have some more gums inside your mouth that they could pull over, like almost like a flap kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why we need somebody on the show, like a dentist, to come and talk about all this cool stuff for dental health.
Yeah. We had that one that wanted to come on, or he was something with oral, but that ended up getting canceled like last year. We should probably reach back out to him, have him back on the show, because that'd be cool.
So we also have alcohol use. That's another main factor that contributes to poor dental health that could lead to all these problems. And drinking, usually your body converts it to sugar. So as you know, what I just mentioned, sugar is bad for you because it feeds off the bacteria. So mixing liquor, beer and all that, mixed drinks actually leads to the breakdown of the enamel, and in the long term could cause tooth decay, gum damage. And also, alcohol naturally decreases the amount of saliva that you have. And saliva is actual natural buffer for your teeth. It actually protects the enamel. And it's a buffer to prevent, it has like a natural antibacterial agent in it. And if you look at the natural pH of saliva, it's 6.2 to 7.6. So it's more of an alkalotic form almost on the border. So if you're consuming things like orange juice, coffee, alcohol, all that stuff, it actually creates acidity in our bodies. And this is a two-way problem, because another thing that leads to bad oral health is chronic stress. So if you always are in fight or flight and you have the sympathetic nervous system constantly activated, what happens is your body naturally prevents the digestive functions of your body from functioning, right? Fight or flight, not rest and digest. So what ends up happening is you actually decrease the amount of saliva that your body is naturally producing. So a dry mouth, you have a higher risk of developing tooth decay because you don't have the antibacterial agent being formed. So dehydration, chronic stress, and then consuming alcohol and things like this and sugary foods are all, and if you think about those four things, look how often we all do them, which leads to bad oral health.
Yeah, and like you say, everything in moderation. But then if you're getting sugar from alcohol drinks, you're getting sugar from your diet, and you're getting sugar from your drinks, even if you keep those at a minimum, you're already getting 3 different sources of it. And it's going to just compile, like compound interest, but in a negative way. And it's crazy because if you think about it, your mouth is a first place that you can say your immune system and your defensive mechanisms start. That's why you have this low pH of 6.2 to 7.6 is more and lower. An ideal pH of your blood is 7.35 to 7.45. So your mouth is naturally more acidotic to already fight off some of that bacteria. And then it goes down to your stomach, where your stomach acid is actually even more acidotic. So another thing that contributes to poor oral hygiene and just poor dental health is smoking cigarettes. Very similar to the way alcohol does, except you could definitely say it's a little bit worse. It decreases that saliva in your mouth as well. But again, smoking cigarettes, just by smoking your cigarettes themselves, you're already lowering your immune system function because of all the cascades that smoking cigarettes does. So you're already putting yourself at a risk for all kinds of issues, not just dental issues. And also you're breathing in that hot smoke of cigarettes, and you're burning that good bacteria. You're not producing saliva. You're damaging your teeth with the heat. You're damaging your gums with the heat. And then you just got to heal. So your immune system is already lowered. So now it's lowered to begin with. And now your immune system has to figure out how to kind of regrow this gum, how to restore this damage. And smoking cigarettes is probably the most detrimental thing that you could do to oral health. You get that tar buildup. People, lose their voice. You get oral cancers. And it increases risk for infection, because if you're damaging the gums, and let's just say, maybe you like, I want to say bit your tongue, but you had some chips and you got like a little cut in your gums. Well, guess what? Now you have cigarette smoke going into there. You're increasing yourself for a bloodstream infection. You could go septic just from something like that.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And tobacco, chewing tobacco is just as bad as well. I remember a few friends from high school that had it. whenever they like pocketed like the tobacco in their mouth, like literally their gums became smaller and all that.
Yeah,
I'm,
because when
I'm also wondering how like smoking those vapes, what it causes. Usually some of those people that have like those vape pens are putting like the juice and like, what ingredients does that juice have? It's usually the taste in your mouth is sweet. So like what if that's causing more attributes to the problem?
Right, and even the heat itself. Of course, it's probably a little bit safer than cigarettes, but still, you never know what it could cause because vaping is still fairly new, so the research is still going to kind of unfold as we go on. But the chewing tobacco is crazy because when you like I've tried it before. I'm not sure if you've tried chewing the tobacco before, but you literally
almost vomited the first time I tried
you can't
it. Man.
swallow. You gotta be careful, dude. When you put it under your like in between like your gums and your lip, like it's the way it works. It's literally making like little cuts in your gums because by creating little cuts in your gums, it's the nicotine and whatever else is in the chewing tobacco is being absorbed better. Because a lot of times we get medication like sublingually, between under the tongue. It's the same concept with chewing tobacco, except like when you put tobacco in there and the stuff that it contains, it literally you could say it causes micro cutting, and that's why you get this super big high or whatever you feel after you do chewing tobacco.
Yeah,
it's
I
crazy.
remember when I was 15 and I tried dip for the first time. Wally gave me some, and I got so lightheaded I thought I was like walking on clouds or something. That's why I got so nauseous, almost vomited. Man, I just didn't know what was going on.
It's a ripper. We used to do it in high school for fun because it was cool. Like, hey man, like because it was back when we were growing up, it was cool to smoke cigarettes. Especially at a young age. So I remember in high school, you can't smoke cigarettes in class, but the next cool thing was having an empty water bottle and putting chewing tobacco under your lip, and then spitting some of that in that water bottle, and if people see you carrying like a water bottle with like the black liquid in it, then it's like, oh shit, he's chewing, he's probably cool. So that was like a big phase for everybody in my high school where people used to do chewing tobacco, and then kind of the educators and teachers caught on and they were able to tell like, hey, you're chewing tobacco because you got this black substance in your water bottle. Like, how does it get in there? And you talk differently because you have stuff under your lips. So when you answer a question, it's like you're a little muffled. So it was easier to tell. So that was like a whole shakedown of that. That ended it fairly quickly.
Damn kids.
So prevention, guys, obviously, brushing your teeth is going to be a major one. Don't smoke. Don't drink a lot of alcohol. Get plenty of exercise. Reduce the consumption of sugars, and also drink more water because water also cleanses your mouth. When you swallow it, you're taking that. It's gonna sound kind of nasty, but when you're drinking just regular water, you're taking some of that, you could say, bad growth or that plaque, and you're swallowing it, and it's getting broken down in your stomach acid. So that's why it's important to drink water, because not only is it hydrating you and making you like better with circulation in your body and in your oral cavities, but it's also like it's a cleaning effect. So that's why it's also very important to drink water, and you're not consuming any sugars that cause damage to your gums and your teeth.
So now we're going to talk about the different conditions that are linked to bad oral health. And we could start with endocarditis. So endocarditis, as you know, it's the infection of the lining of the heart chambers and usually those valves. And they usually do an echo to evaluate what's going on. So it's a systematic blood infection, and it starts in the mouth. Usually, sometimes when dentists have like procedures where they're doing tooth extractions and stuff like that, they have to be careful with septic techniques. And then I also mentioned gingivitis, how this organ in the mouth is so interconnected because we have so many blood vessels, and that's why it could lead to systematic infections.
Yeah, we looked at a study that looked at people that have poor dental hygiene and just poor oral health. They have gingivitis and periodontitis. So it took 94 participants and took a look at their oral health. These participants had poor hygiene, like I said, gingivitis, periodontal disease. They evaluated all their status, and they concluded that if you have any of those, then you have a 3.78 to a 4.43 fold increase in the risk of developing bacteremia and then causing endocarditis. So if you have poor hygiene, you have gingivitis, you have all these dental issues, this inflammation, then it's literally linked to endocarditis. This is the most major one. A lot of the other ones that we're going to go over a little bit later, they're not as significant, but this is very significant. And when people get treated for endocarditis, the infectious disease team, they're able to see what kind of bacteria is causing this. And it's crazy that the bacteria in your oral cavities can actually be found causing this endocarditis, because to give you antibiotics and stuff, We got to figure out what we're treating with. We can't give you just a broad spectrum antibiotics all the time because it's not going to kill it off. We can't just give you Vanco and expect the best or whatever else they do with the broad. Right. Yeah, we can't give you whatever. We got to figure out what this, we got to culture, we got to figure out what this is. And it's just showing us that, hey, there's oral bacteria that's normally in your oral cavities is now in your bloodstream, and now it's causing you to have this endocarditis, inflammation of the heart layer. And it's crazy. It's this stems from your teeth. And this is the biggest one and the most major one because people die from this. You could literally have endocarditis and you could throw out a clot and you could have a heart attack. You could throw out a clot because of endocarditis and you could have a stroke. You could have all these other issues that all stem from poor oral health that you could have done if you just brush your teeth twice a day. It's very unfortunate, man.
The next one is cardiovascular disease. So this is more of a theory that's not fully understood. And research is kind of saying that, hey, maybe clogged arteries, heart disease, strokes, and all that is kind of linked to inflammation and infections that are starting in the oral cavity. Of course, it's hard to, figure and pinpoint that on the research because there's also all these comorbidities, all these other cofactors that are coming into play of unsanitary lifestyles that we could pinpoint towards a stroke. So it's hard to just say, hey, oral health is doing that. But just like we're talking about that, there's bacteria that are infecting the lining of the teeth. It's causing gingivitis, receding gums, and this bacteria could travel elsewhere that could create a problem. So it's not the bacteria that's causing the issue. It's also our inflammatory immune system or the inflammation and / immune system that's causing issues, just like we talk about the cytokine storm. It's not the virus that's killing you sometimes. It's literally our own immune system that's triggering this stuff. So if you have bacteria that keeps entering through the oral cavities, causing inflammation, that is offsetting the cascade of, the microbial warfare that's happening in our bloodstream that's leading to the cascade of vascular damage throughout the body. That could include the heart and the brain. That could maybe lead to a stroke, but it's creating that plaque and atherosclerosis. And just like I mentioned, it's a theory, so there isn't a direct connection between that, but it's something we could speculate. And I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from here, five years from here, the research comes out about this and Cup of Nurses was right because, we're always on top of the health trends.
Yeah, and this is from Harvard itself. Like Matt said, they concluded that there's no direct correlation, but the fact is that if you have poor dental hygiene, then you probably have other stuff that you're poor at. It means you're probably not getting enough exercise, and you might be a smoker. You might be your alcohol consumption might be high. It's the fact that the poor dental hygiene is connected to also being in poor health. That's the correlation that Harvard made. Is what they're saying is that because you have poor oral health and poor oral hygiene, you're also not doing other things right. And combining all these things is what's leading for you to have these cardiovascular disease. Not directly just poor oral health, but the fact that you're also messing up on other things in your life like diet, exercise, and all that other stuff that you should be focused on. So that kind of almost shows you a little bit about who you are as a person, because there's no direct correlation between oral health and cardiovascular disease, but there's a correlation between poor overall health and cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, when you're about to date a person, tell them to open up their mouth, tell them to stick their tongue out, see how it looks, see how the cavity looks, and you'll be able to decide how the lifestyles of that person and habits. Maybe you're gonna find out if you want to date them or not.
Right. I'm gonna definitely carry my next day. I'm gonna bring a pen light and one of those tools with a little mirror.
The tongue depressor.
You can see. And a little mirror thing that always the dentist shoves down your mouth. But probably the craziest thing that we were able to find when we did some digging is poor oral health and its correlation to pregnancy and birth complications. So a study looked at pregnant women. It was a systematic review. One of them was systematic review, and it had 22 studies in it. So it had 17,000 subjects, and they basically concluded that peritonitis is associated with adverse pregnancy outcomes. So low birth weight and preterm birth has been associated to poor oral health of the mother, which is super scary because if you're not taking care of your teeth and you have periodontal disease or periodontitis, then your child might come out with low birth weight, and that's scary because it's not only affects you, but it affects your child. And it's, why would you want to put that kind of life forward to a kid that you're about to have? You're already having them start at a lower base than everybody else, and it's just because you have these oral diseases and these oral issues because you didn't really take care of yourself. But the issue also is that there's a lot of hormonal changes when a woman is going through pregnancy. So scientists and researchers are also showing that because these hormones are changing and they're messing up the whole body, that they have a higher likelihood of these oral issues. So you have to kind of be paying attention even more about your oral health if you're pregnant. Just because your hormones are out of whack, the bacteria in your mouth get affected, the bacteria throughout your body get affected because of your hormones. So you have to take care of yourself even more, because you're not living alone, you could say, anymore. You're living with two. Your body is housing another human in you. So you have to kind of double down on your health in general, and you have to double down on your oral health, because it could lead to preterm labor and it could lead to low birth weights. Scary stuff, dude. Yeah, so imagine, so this is why it's such a big phenomenon in third world countries, and it's such a big issue, because people have poor oral health to begin with, and then you throw in the whole birthing process and pregnancy in these third world countries, in these poorer countries, and then you realize why they have such poor birth outcomes outside of the U.S. because it might be just because they're poor oral health and poor dental health, and it's very unfortunate to see that happening.
We could definitely attest to that, because our parents always used to laugh. Like, my dad used to be like, dude, when do you think I had time to brush my teeth when I was out in the field all day? Or it's like, dude, I showered like once every like 3, 4, 5 days, when they used to laugh at me when I took 2 showers after I worked out or before bed and stuff like that. So
that's like an excuse, though. It's just an excuse if you think about it. Because how long, my parents told me the same thing, and I'm like, okay, you didn't have like a minute of your day to brush your teeth. Like, don't give me the bullshit, because they used to make fun of me too for showers. Like, I used to shower in the morning and I used to work out and then come back, shower again, and they used to like laugh. Like, in Poland we used to wash ourselves once a week, and we're a lot dirtier than you and stuff like that. But that's with the whole teeth brushing thing, I was like, all right, I'm calling bullshit on that one for sure, dude. Just think about it. It's only a minute, it doesn't take that long. It's just, it's very, very unfortunate.
I can see the whole shower thing where it was hard to put coal and wood into the fireplace to heat up the boiler to shower. You couldn't wash the whole family, or they just like rinse stuff in the river and stuff like that, which was interesting. But the next one is pneumonia. And you hear this all the time with oral care, especially in the ICU. When the patient is intubated, we can't stress that enough, that, hey, it's part of the whole bundle of VAP to prevent like hospital-acquired pneumonia, basically. And that's why we're using the chlorhexidine, trying to brush their mouth at least Q4. I used to do like oral care all the time, like Q2. That was like a big thing. And here on this contract, they just say Q4. So it's different per hospital. But as you know, this mouth has all this bacteria. It's opportunistic. It could travel down to the lungs and cause different infections. And that's why it's so crazy. Like, the longer you're on the ventilator, the higher chances of you getting something. It's like you got intubated for one thing, like COPD. 1 week goes by. Now you're spiking fevers. What's going on? We check the freaking sputum culture. You're growing Klebsiella. Where did you get that from? Well, just look at the mouth. Usually their mouth is so dry when they're intubated and stuff like that. And it kind of makes sense. We talked about saliva and its antibacterial, mechanisms and everything. So that's fascinating. And we looked at a study that had over 122,000 participants with no history of pneumonia. The median age was 52.4. They checked things such as systolic blood pressure and fasting blood sugars, which were average of 125 milligrams of mercury. Average blood sugars were 96.7 fasting, so already sounds a little bit like a pre-diabetic state there. They're almost close to 100.
Yeah, 52 years old, you got to give them some leeway.
So 49.6% of those participants had periodontal disease. 2.7 to 6% of them had 5 or more dental cavities or missing teeth. And this was self-reported questionnaires, by the way. And 45% of the participants said they brush their teeth at least 2 or 3 times a day. 26 of them replied that they had a dental cleaning at least once per year, which technically I think is recommended to get it twice per year. So they're already lacking there. What they concluded is the risk of pneumonia was higher in groups with higher number of dental cavities, missing teeth, and in contrast, it had a higher risk of pneumonia. And they had a lower risk of developing pneumonia when they actually brushed their teeth 2 or 3 times a day. So that's fascinating, and that's why we stress about the importance of oral care. There was no correlation between pneumonia and periodontal disease. Seems like that's more of like a vascular issue, which makes sense because of the receding gums. And yeah, I think I think it's important to just brush your teeth regularly and all that, and that's what the study kind of concluded when it comes to pneumonia.
Yeah, you should definitely look at our show notes, because when I first found the study, like, it was a really cool study, because when you're trying to do a research study, you want to kind of account for as much variables as possible, and it's really cool because they accounted for their blood glucose, they accounted for their blood pressure, they accounted their history of pneumonia, their age, and a lot of these other factors, and they did a questionnaire, which obviously isn't perfect, but they asked a lot of questions. They were able to figure out their a greater health history, because let's say if you didn't take a person's blood sugar in this study, you could say, well, then somebody could come in and say, hey man, did you check blood sugars? What if the chances of pneumonia are higher because their sugars were higher? This kind of accounted for that. So you got an idea. So the more variables you control, the better it is. In the research, you get better results and more accurate results. So it's really cool. So you guys should definitely go on companynursing.com and check out the show notes if you want to see a good study, especially now during this pandemic, and there's so much research studies out there, and you're not sure how to differentiate between a good research study and a bad research study. This is a really good example of a really good research study.
Yeah, and there's so much that we could have covered in this episode. Like, I was looking at like the products that they were using back in the day, like mercury and all the tooth fillings, how it actually ruins the buffering system of saliva. It's even linked to like allergies, but it was such a rabbit hole to go down on that, like, this would take hours and hours to put this thought into this episode. That's not something we can do. So I definitely would love to get like a health expert on in the future that's into like holistic dentistry and see what he thinks. I was briefly skimming at that book with the doctor that we mentioned, and like sometimes he recommends people that have like mercury fillings to have that re-extracted. So you want to get a drill and remove the mercury and fill it with something else that's a little bit more accommodating. And then what's crazy that blew my mind is the current tooth fillings that they're using. It's a mixture of ceramics and something else. It has biphenyl A, which is BPA. So the stuff that's in our microplastics and our bottles that are saying that BPA is unhealthy, we did a whole research thing about cancer, about breast cancer and all that, that is sitting in our teeth continuously. Like, what are the effects of that? Is it continuously being released? How is it changing the saliva and all that? Yeah. So many questions I have for the teeth, man.
Yeah, because we get a lot of vessels in our mouth. It's very, it's very vascularized, if you could say. So what if you have like a poor filling that's just like, you could say, leaking BPA, which would be insane. I wonder if that's like a possible kind of thing.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up.
Next thing we're going to talk about is fluoride. Is it the best means of fighting tooth decay? So as you know, fluoride is considered like an essential part of dentistry and dental care. All of our toothpaste basically has fluoride. I personally choose not to get fluoridated toothpaste for the reasons here that we're going to talk about. And if you think about it, our U.S. population, 73% of the public water access has water infused with fluoride. And this guy looked at Germany like in 2018, and they do not fluoride their water, and they have the rates of tooth decay is dropping. So what's the correlation between, tooth decay and fluoride?
So I looked at some stuff regarding this too, because the dental health in the U.S. Has gotten better over last years after they introduced fluoride in toothpaste and other things. And what I kind of looked at was like, is fluoride naturally occurring, and where does fluoride come from? And if you think about it, and you actually look at the foods that fluoride is actually in, because it's a naturally occurring compound, it's in milk, it's in dark leafy greens like spinach. So maybe these places that don't have fluoride in water, they have a healthier diet. So this kind of shows you that, and we talked about, I forgot what it was that we talked about, trans fats, and how there's naturally occurring trans fats in milk as well. So this kind of shows you that almost like Mother Nature provides you just of everything that you need to stay healthy. Because a lot of times poor oral health is also due to a poor diet. So most likely if you have a lot of oral cavities, a lot of any kind of oral issues, your diet's probably lacking. You're probably not eating enough leafy greens. You're probably not eating enough vegetables because fluoride's in vegetables. Like we naturally consume small amounts of fluoride through the foods that we eat. And this might be, if you ate these foods, maybe that's just enough fluoride to, sustain good oral health. But we're not doing that. We're rather eat the junk food, rather eat the canned soups or whatever, else fast food junk food.
Rather get an artificial dump of fluoride into our body.
It's crazy. It's mind blowing that like in nature you could get enough of everything. You just have to take it in and eat it, and it just shows you how crazy important your diet is on your overall health.
Yeah, and fluoride has a role. It's able to store and lock calcium and other minerals in a tooth enamel, and it's a wonderful attribute. But there's also side effects. So I don't know if we ever did an episode about fluoride, but I looked at a bunch of things, how it was linked to chromosomal changes, bone cancer, and impairments to intelligence. So I definitely remember looking at a research study how fluoride was able to lower IQ scores. There's a bunch of studies that support fluoride, and they pledge to the allegiance of the innocence of fluoride. So you have to kind of like do your own research and use your own thoughts about this. But what's fascinating is that the Germans, back in the Nazis, they used to use fluoride for eugenics purposes, and they used to sterilize people with fluoride. And then I looked something up from...
you should have looked up, because I didn't get a chance to look it up. We should have looked at like what's a healthy amount of fluoride. I feel like we have to get a look at that, because a lot of research studies that are out there, they're probably looking at like substantial amounts of fluoride that would probably be hard to consume, Yeah, but if you add all that water and shit to it, you never know how much you're hitting.
And then also found there was a USAF Major George R. Jordan, which testified in front of like the U.S. American Activity Committee back in the 1950s. He was part of the Soviet Elysian officers, and he reported that they used to put fluoride in the water supplies in the gulags to make the prisoners more stupid and more subservient, we should say. So fascinating things. I don't think we're consuming that much fluoride. I don't know how much they're pouring in that water, but just be careful. Use your, I don't think Brita filters fluoride. You have to get like a reverse osmosis filter to get rid of that. But I think our zero water actually filters most of it. And that kind of goes back to the concept of, holistic dentistry is the whole point of dentistry is not to overburden the body with artificial substances and to avoid that. And we could get that from nutrients, just like you mentioned. So we have natural functioning capacities of the body. It's beautiful. The more we talk about it, we just have to feed it the proper things for it to do its job.
Yeah, it's very important. Even like the texture of food is important. Our jaw has muscles, or there's muscles in our in our mouth. And imagine if you would just lived off something that you just drink, like you just keep eating soups or whatever. Imagine how much that would change your anatomy. It's very important to eat whole foods. It's important to eat like celery, like things that you could crunch, that you have to chew to work that muscle, and to kind of so it like you get your gums could build up properly to the food that you eat, because it's a building process as well. It doesn't just happen the way it is. Like I know there's some research out there regarding, I know one of the Weinstein brothers pointed this out, that children that are given like those little baby food things for a prolonged period of time and not introduced like whole foods when they're supposed to, they have an issue with their jaw development. Like they have different abnormalities in their jaw, which could have been prevented if they got like whole foods when they're supposed to. So you have to be careful with that, because this is like, these are chronic issues that we keep mentioning. And if your oral space doesn't form properly growing up because you choose not to eat these foods, then it's going to lead to like oral defects and just malformation. So that's why it's very important for kids to have parents that introduce food at the appropriate time to give a push for a healthy diet right off the rip, because that's the things that the kid's going to make staples in his life moving forward. That's why we always talk about dental health and oral health with kids, because it starts when you're a child. It doesn't really start in adulthood. Poor oral health gets developed when a kid's grown up.
Yeah, and tougher foods do make you tougher, literally. There was researchers that recently found something that you chewing food actually leads to your body producing natural cells, which are called Th17 cells that are formulated in your mouth. And these cells are actually part of your immune system, which helps ward off harmful bacteria and actually helps protect the naturally friendly occurring bacteria. So these cells, Th17 cells, are in the mouth. The more we chew, the more of these cells are produced. So think about that. We need to be chewing things, just like you mentioned, celery and all that stuff that is naturally occurring that actually stimulates all this from happening.
Yeah, and I'll close off with just some tips to promote good oral hygiene. Make sure you brush your teeth twice a day. Use mouthwash daily. Floss daily, at least once a day. Drink more water. Eat more crunchy vegetables and fruits. And then see your dentist at least twice a year.
And if you're dating somebody, make sure you take a look at their mouth
Before you kiss them.
Yeah, because you're going to be spreading all that shit back and forth.
You get pneumonia.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, finding the time for listening to this episode. We appreciate that. If you guys find value in this podcast, please go ahead and give it a share, like, comment, subscribe, share with your loved ones. That's how we grow. Thank you. See you on the next one.
Peace out, guys.